सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे रामेणाभिहता निशाचरचमु रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक् प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Hari Om. In the last session we had seen section 1 of Kenopanishad was completed, and Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji summarized entire section 1 in very few words. He said this student who has been given the teaching of Vedanta, what is the nature of this teaching? He said that Atma which is heyo padeya varjita, that Atma which is not different from yourself, which cannot be given up and which need not be taken up from somewhere, that Atma about whom you asked the question, Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha, what is it that propels the sense organs, mind and everything to function? It says that what you are seeking for is you yourself. But that was one part of this teaching, that Atma is the prompter of all these conditionings and everything. The other part of the teaching was that this Atma is not finite, it is infinite. So first step is to come from our erroneous identification from body, mind, sense organs to this Atman. And second step is to know the Mahima of Atma, the glory of Atma, that this Atma itself is infinite Brahma. That teaching was given in section 1. Now this topic is so subtle that even if the student says, I know Brahma, the teacher feels there is a chance that he is still misunderstanding something else to be Brahma. So that is why the second section begins, where the teacher is trying to shake the student's understanding and see whether Brahman that Upanishads elaborate, Brahman that I have understood, the teacher is saying, and the Brahman that the student has understood, is it the same or not? Okay. Teacher's understanding and Upanishad understanding will always be together. But the teacher wants to make sure that student also is able to abide in that true nature of Brahman. So what is wrong in that statement? I know Brahman very well. I know Brahman very well. The teacher wants to point out he says there is a possibility. He doesn't directly say that you have misunderstood or something. He says there is a possibility. Yadi manya se suvedeti. That is how the mantra will be. That when you say I know, your I is still landing in ahankara. When you say I know Brahma, that I in that sentence can still be landing in ahankara. And the student might be saying that as this ahankara, I know Brahman. Means he might not say it, verbally, but the implication of his understanding would be that he is this ahankara and Brahma he knows as an object. With the same lakshana, he might still know Brahman to be infinite and everything, but he knows as just like space is infinite and all pervading. He says Brahman is like that, which is all pervading and so on. So then the question would be, if Brahman is all pervading, then what about you? He say, I know that Brahman is all pervading. He say, that is the thinking that we need to break over here. This is the misunderstanding or the error that this teacher wants to catch. Okay. He doesn't want student to say, I know that Brahman which is all pervading. Okay. He says, I am that Brahman which is all pervading. Teacher doesn't want the student to know that Brahman which is Jagat Karanam. That from which creation emerges, is sustained and dissolves. Says, I want you to know you are that Brahman and you are that Jagat Karan. Okay. So based on that statement, I know Brahman very well. So teacher is catching hold of this point that, oh student, make sure that I doesn't land on ahankara. If you have known in that way, then it is limited understanding. Okay. Because Atma never becomes drishya. Atma never becomes an object of knowledge. It is drashta only. And that has to be me, myself, not knowing something about Atma. Okay. So knowing something very well or not knowing something very well, that is only possible for an object, not for Atma, because there is no knowing involved in Atma. Knowing is part of ahankara. Sometimes this also happens, whenever we hear the word Brahma and many description is given and say you should seek Brahman. Brahman is that which is infinite. It is Ananda Swarupa. Sometimes the student feels Brahman is name of some person. And there are statements also we hear that I like Brahman very much. I like Brahman very much means who are you then? So these are subtler things which are trying to be addressed over here, which can come to any student. That's why the teacher is giving benefit of doubt. He says, Yadi manyase. If you think, that Brahman is very well known, then you have to think again. Okay, this was what we had seen so far. Now let us see ahead. Now the answer is given. The Purva Paksha, the other objection was raised. Isn't it required or isn't it good that the student knows Brahman very well? What is the harm in his statement? Why is the teacher trying to shake him unnecessarily? He was ready to graduate, ready to go out from Gurukula, but unnecessarily the teacher is making him wait and asking all sorts of questions. So Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji is responding now why the student's understanding is being challenged over here. Very beautiful points he brings. Let us see. Satyam, Satyam, Ishta Nishchita Pratipattihi, Ishta Nishchita Pratipattihi, Nahi Suveda Aham Iti, Nahi Suveda Aham Iti, Yadhi Vedyam Vastu, Yadhi Vedyam Vastu, Vishayi Bhavati, Vishayi Bhavati, Tatsushtu Veditam Veditum Shakyam, Tatsushtu Veditum Shakyam, Dahyamiva Dagdhum Agnehe Dagdhuhu, Dahyamiva Dagdhum Agnehe Dagdhuhu, Natu Agnehe Swarupameva, Natu Agnehe Swarupameva, Sarvasyahi, Sarvasyahi, Vedituhu Swatma Brahmeti, Vedituhu Swatma Brahmeti, Sarva Vedantanam Sunishchitarthah, Sarva Vedantanam Sunishchito Arthah, Iha cha Tadeva Pratipaditam, Iha cha Tadeva Pratipaditam, Prashna Prativachana Uktya, Prashna Prativachana Uktya, Shrotrasya Shrotram Ityadhyaya, Shrotrasya Shrotram Ityadhyaya. Shankaracharya says, Satyam. Satyam. He says, whatever you are saying is correct. Means we want the student to have clear knowledge. Not that, teacher wants to unnecessarily push the student and tell him that he doesn't understand and so on. No, no, no. We really want the student to understand. Ishta nishchita pratipattihi. Nahi suveda ahamiti. But what we don't want is the student to say, I know Brahman very well. Okay, just like what we discussed before. You say, I know that space is all pervading. And I know this fact very well. In the same way, he will say, I know Brahman is also all pervading. And I know this very well. This is that Suveda we don't want. Because somewhere or the other, Brahman is again becoming an object. Yaddi Vedyam Vastu Vishay Bhavati Tat Sushtu Veditam Shakyam. What can be known very well? This is only that object which is Vishaya. Whatever becomes an object of our sense organs, that object can be known very well. Yaddi Vedyam Vastu Vishay Bhavati. Vedyam Vastu means object which becomes known to sense organs. That we can say Sushtu Vedyam, that object is very well known. But that which is its Swarupa, that Swarupa, there is no need to say it is well known. Object of the world, I need to get knowledge of those things. But Atma is knowledge itself. So in that Atma, there is no Kriya, there is no action of knowing also. Okay? In Atma, there is no Kriya of knowing also. To establish this point, this particular discussion is taken up. A very nice example is given. Dahyamiva dagdhum agnehe dagduhu natu agnehe swarupameva. We can say fire has burnt the wood. Okay, dahyam iva dagdhum agnehe dagduhu. Means fire, agnehe. Dagduhu dahyam iva dagdhum. It can only say, burn something very well, or it can burn partially if it is different from itself. Means if you take firewood, then you can say fire burnt this wood completely, or it burned this wood partially. But you cannot say fire burnt itself. Why? Because there cannot be kriya, there cannot be action of burning in fire itself. Fire is of the nature of heat. So there cannot be kriya of burning in fire. In firewood, you can say that it burnt very well or it did not burn. You see what a beautiful example. Huh? He's talking about Atma now. The similarity you see. It says in Atma, the swarupa of Atma is knowledge. Okay, nature of Atman is consciousness, it is knowledge. So it can know other things very well. It can know object very well. But we cannot say, I know Atma very well. Why? Because knowing action cannot take place in Atma. Just like burning action cannot take place in fire. Why? Because heat is nature of fire. It can burn other things. It need not burn itself. It cannot burn itself also. So the similarity is nature of Atma is knowledge. So it need not know itself and it cannot know itself in that way as an object. So if the student is saying that statement, I know Atma very well, so the teacher is saying, if your I is referring to Atma, then reflect upon that statement more. Don't know Atma as an object. Atma never becomes an object, first of all. And there is no knowing action in Atma. Okay. Dahyamiva dagdhum agnehe dagduhu natu agnehe swarupameva. There cannot be burning in fire because that heat or burning is nature of fire only. Okay. Natu agnehe swarupam eva. Fire cannot burn itself. That is the main theme. But if you appreciate the example, you can apply the same thing to Atma. Okay. Fire can burn something else. Atma can know something else as an object. But if somebody says, I know Atma as an object, that understanding is questioned. Sarvasya hi vedituhu swatma brahma iti sarva vedantanam sunishchita arthaha. What is the conviction of all Upanishads, of all mantras in Upanishads? He says, Sarvasya hi vedituhu swatma brahma iti. The one who is knowing, the Atma of that knower is Brahma. Since you say Ahankara is there, right where you see Ahankara, there only you will find Atma. And that Atma is infinite. I am not conditioned to this, conditioned by this, one set of body, mind, and intellect. But this Atma is infinite, unaffected by any conditionings. If that is the case, then where is the question of knowing Atma very well? Sarvasya hi vedituhu swatma brahma iti sarva vedantanam sunishchita artha. Just like the Atma of that fire is heat. Okay. So Atma of all knower is this Shuddha Chaitanya, which is Brahma. So where is the question of knowing that, substratum as an object and saying that I know it very well? Ihacha tadeva pratipaditam prashna prativachana uktya shrotrasya shrotram ityadya. So in this Upanishad also, the same thing was indicated by that mantra, shrotrasya shrotram. Then don't look for Atma somewhere else. There where conditionings are, conditionings of sense organ, conditionings of mind, right there, look for the substratum of it. There you will find pure consciousness. And that consciousness is infinite. But how was it pointed out? Through negation. It was not pointed out as an object. Right? So this point is again brought here. And we had seen earlier also, the discussion was there. Why couldn't the teacher just say that Atma is the prompter of all sense organs? Why does he have to say this cryptic mantras, Shrotrasya Shrotram, Manaso Manoyat, and so on? So there we had discussed, Atma doesn't have action of its own. Like a sickle holder, who even if he drops that sickle, he has his name, he can do some other action, and he can be indicated independent of that action. But Atma doesn't have action of its own, so it will be indicated through action of its conditionings. So there is no listening in Atma. But through ears, through ability to listen, Atma will be pointed out. Shrotrasya Shrotram. So here also the same idea is brought. That is why this part is quoted. Shrotrasya Shrotram Ityadaya. That which is Swarupa of something, that cannot become an object of its own action. Swarupa of fire is heat, so it cannot burn itself. That is the main thing here. Now there are a few other reasons he gives why the student's understanding is being challenged. This will directly read. Yad vacha anabhyuditam iti visheshatah avadharitam. Previously only it was said, Yad vacha anabhyuditam, yena vag abhyudyate, tadeva brahmatvam vidhi, nedam yadidam upasate. Means this nature of Atma Tattva is such that it cannot be spoken about. And you remember, Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji went into long description of just this word vacha. Anahata Nada and everything we saw, the 8 places where the sound strikes, the air strikes, from that what emerges, he said that is vacha. But main point was, Brahman doesn't have the 5 Shabda Pravritti Nimittan. Guna, Kriya, Jati, Sambandha, and Rudhi. Now these points you have seen earlier. Later on you can go and refer. If you remember, well and good. A thing can be indicated by words only if it has these 5 things. But Brahman doesn't have these 5 things. That is why it is said, it cannot be revealed by speech. And if the student is saying, I know Brahman very well, he says it cannot be revealed by speech, what is that you are going to describe about Brahman? Object can be revealed by speech, but not Brahma. So there could be a misunderstanding. It is, teacher is not saying everybody will have that. He says, if you have this, then I'm just pointing out few things. One cannot explain Brahman as an object. It can be indicated through Upanishad Pramana, which will negate conditionings. It will not reveal Brahman as this is, like how you say this is a watch, this is a laptop, not as an object. It will always be in a very different way. So that is the first reason he says. Because it cannot be revealed by words, the student might have the desire to speak about Brahman as an object. That is why the teacher is shaking. Brahmavit Sampradaya Nishchitaha Brahmavit Sampradaya Nishchaya Uktaha Nishchayascha Uktaha Anya Devatad Viditat Ato Aviditat Adi Iti. The conviction of Sampradaya, that also has been just now mentioned. What is Brahma? What is Atma? It is that which is different from known and which is beyond unknown. Means entire Vidita Prapancha was negated. Vidita Prapancha means all gross objects and subtle objects. Vidita included both of it, and Avidita was Maya. So when Brahman is pointed out as something which is different from all this, the student should not again enter Vidita Prapancha or something in Avidita and understand something conditioned only as Brahma. Why? Because he is going to be the Uttardai, the one who is going to carry this legacy of Sampradaya forward. And if one brick is tilted, then all the bricks after that also will be tilted. So here Upanishad Rishi wants to make sure that the student doesn't step away from this Sampradaya Artha. The beauty of Sampradaya Artha is it will reveal to us a lot of deeper meanings of ordinary words. That is the power of this Brahmavit Sampradaya Nishchayaha. Means words which look very simple, very straightforward, or sometimes we are unable to understand those words. So Sampradaya Artha will make sure that this meaning is very well understood by us. We get an insight into the mantra when these words are brought in. That's why Goswamiji said that this Sampradaya is like a bridge. Whatever they have reflected, whatever they have thought of, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is understand that clearly, have Shraddha in their words, and then just cross over this bridge of samsara. Chadi Pipilikavu Paramalaghu Binu Shrama Parahi Jai. Pipilika means an ant. He says, my previous acharyas who came, they have already built this bridge. So in Ramcharitmanas, I'm not going to start something new. All Sampradaya Artha which is there, that will be protected. And of course, my own Mananam which is there, that also I will present. Right? In Mangalacharanam only he says, Nana Purana Nigamagama Sammatam Yata Ramayane Nigaditam Kvachit Anyatopi. Kvachit Anya also is there. Otherwise, same thing I'm also writing here. Then what is the difference between their Grantha and my Grantha? But main point is, Sampradaya Artha is, Brahman is not Vishaya. And it cannot be indicated by words. So unknowingly, the student should not step away from this Sampradaya. Okay? Because he will teach also in that way. When he's sharing with somebody else, later on, the same thought will be there. There is some Brahma that I know of, but you don't know it right now. Or you will become Brahman one day. The student might go on to teach in that way. He says, no, Sampradaya Artha is, you are already Brahma. You don't have to become Brahma. Why? Because you look at this quotation, how precise it is. Anya devatad viditat atho aviditatati. Brahman is my swarupa. It cannot be given up. That it was given up sometime, now I have to go and get it. He says, no. Chaitanya is our swarupa, we cannot give it up. And it is anupadaya. It need not be taken up also. That is why he says, he quotes this particular line over here. Upanyastam upasamharishyati cha avidjnatam vijanatam vijnatam avijanatam iti. Whatever was started in Kenopanishad by saying Shrotrasya Shrotram and then Anya Devatad Viditat Atva Viditatati, the concluding part of Kenopanishad will say Avijnatam Vijanatam. One who does not know, knows it. Vijnatam Avijnanatam. One who says, I know, does not know it. So the student should not get surprised later. When the Upanishad is concluding, he says, Arey, Upanishad also says that I have not understood. So the teacher is doing the Sthula Nikananan before only. Okay. So what is this mantra trying to say? Avijnatam Vijanatam. Means those who have not understood, or those who don't think of Brahman as an object, they have understood. Avidnyatam vijanatam. But those who are still thinking of Brahman as something different from themselves. Now, you see, Brahman means that word Brahma should not come. Huh? Along with that, all Lakshana of Brahma should also come. Like Jagat Karanam. Right? Jagat Karanam is Brahma. So thinking Brahman to be different from myself means thinking Jagat Karanam to be different from myself. Brahma is Asanga. So thinking Brahma to be different from myself means thinking myself to be Sasanga. Right? I feel I get affected. I get influenced by things. We say that I is not landing in Brahma. Still that sadhaka is feeling Brahma is something else. I am this individual. Okay, so Brahma word, whatever Lakshana of Brahma we have seen, that should come whenever we listen or reflect on this word Brahma. So over here also, avidnyatam vijanatam, vijnatam avijanatam. So if the student says, I know Brahma very well. So if he has known it as an object, if he knows Jagat Karana as different from himself, so there this Upanishad mantra says, Vijnatam avijanatam. Even though he might describe Jagat Karanam, he might describe Asangatva, but he's still feeling that it is an object different from himself. To avoid this, teacher is doing Stula Nikhanana right now. Tasmad yuktam eva shishyasya suveda iti buddhim nirakartum. Therefore, it is appropriate that the teacher is trying to remove this erroneous notion from the student's mind that I know Brahma very well. Main idea is not to think about Brahman as something different from myself and to think of it as an object. One should not think of it as an object in that way. So this he has just answered the question of Purvapaksha. Purvapaksha said, isn't it desirable that the student has to understand it very well? So Bhashyakara gave such a long elaboration of, it is desirable, no doubt, but not as Suveda iti. Okay, Su means Vishayatvat Veda. That is not desirable. Nahi vedita vedituhu veditum shakyah agnehe dagduriva dagdhum agnehe. Same idea. Knower cannot know oneself. Knower means absolute knower. Atma cannot know itself because its nature is knowledge. It can know thoughts, it can know an object, but just in the same way, it cannot know itself as an object. Okay, nahi vedita vedituhu veditum shakyah. Agnihi dagduriva dagdum agnehi. Just like fire cannot burn itself. There could be another doubt that, okay, this Brahman is there, which doesn't become an object, which cannot be known very well. But maybe there is some other knower of Brahma. Okay. There can be some other knower of Brahma which knows this Brahma very well. Okay. Maybe that Brahman this student is referring to. Say no, nacha anyaha vedita brahmana asti. There is no other knower of Brahman. Don't search anywhere else. Right where you see Shrotrendriya, right where you see mind, right where you see Ahankara, there alone you will find infinite consciousness, which is Brahma. So there is no other Brahma which is knowing this Brahma. Only one Brahman is there. न च अन्यः वेदिता ब्रह्मणः अस्ति यस्य वेद्यम् अन्यत् स्यात् ब्रह्म. The one of whom this original Brahman becomes Vedya. So Purva Paksha is saying maybe there are two Brahmans. One Brahma which is witness of thought, and then there is another Brahman which is knowing this Brahma, okay, which is knowing it as an object, which is knowing it very well. Maybe that Brahma the student is referring to. He said no, there is only one Brahma. That is why it cannot be known as an object. Upanishad mantra is quoted, Na anyadasti vijñatru. There is no other knower. Iti anyaha vijñata pratishidyate. In this way, another knower, multiple knowers, that thing is refuted. I mean, sometimes we also have a doubt. This is not a very technical question or something. We see Upanishads keep saying, I am Brahma, I am Brahma. Am I really Brahma? Is the witness of this thought substratum of creation? Or is there something else, which is Brahma? Same question Satiji also had asked Lord Shiva. Parvati ji also asks in Ramayana. Is it the same Rama who is Brahma? Or is it some other Rama, who is Brahma? Because this one I see is lamenting and crying, but other one could be there who is Brahma, and that Brahma can be Rama, but not this one. So here Upanishad says there is no other knower. There is no other Brahma. It is this witness of thought, that alone is Brahma. Okay, so all of that, those points are brought here. Tasmat sushtu veda aham brahma iti pratipattihi mithya eva. Very powerful statement. Bhagavan says, I know Brahman very well. That kind of understanding is mithya. Mithya means there is an appearance of knowledge, but knowledge is not really there. Mithya means that, if you say mirage water is mithya, what does it mean? It is very well appearing, but there is nothing. So this word is a very deep word, means only to tell us that we should understand this truth in the right way. Sampradaya ukta nishchaya should be our nishchaya. Tasmat yuktam eva aha acharyah yadi ityadi. Therefore, whatever the teacher is going to say now, Upanishad Rishi is going to say, it is very appropriate. Okay. Let us see the mantra now. Yadi manyase suvedeti, yadi manyase suvedeti, dabhramevapi nunam, dabhramevapi nunam, tvam vetha brahmano rupam, tvam vetha brahmano rupam, yadasya tvam yadasya deveshu, yadasya tvam yadasya deveshu, atha numimam samevate, atha numimam samevate, manye viditam, manye viditam. Yadi. All this description was just to prove the appropriateness of this word yadi. That this word is appropriate, just to prove this. Entire previous Sambandha Bhashya was there. If you think you know Brahma very well, yadi manyase suveda iti, dabhram eva api nunam, tvam vetha brahmano rupam. Tvam brahmana rupam vetha dabhram eva. What you have understood to be nature of Brahma, that is limited only. Teacher does not say, you have not understood. Oh, what kind of understanding is this? Why? Because this is not an ordinary student. He is a great upasaka. And also, other darshanas are included in this mantra. Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshika. Their understanding of Atma is also conditioned understanding. So later on, Bhagwan will say, all of them are addressed over here. That is why the teacher is giving that benefit of doubt also. He says, if you have understood Brahma very well, means with some conditioning only you have understood, not unconditioned Brahma. Dabhram eva api nunam tvam vitta brahmano rupam yadasya tvam yadasya deveshu. If you have understood yourself as conditioned Brahma, that this ahankara is Brahma, it is one kind of upasana. Ahangrahopasana it is called. This is that is limited understanding. There is something more to it. Brahman is not conditioned by one individual upadhi. Or if you have Brahma Buddhi in some devata, like in Ganapati Aturshesha, we chant it, right? For Vayu Devata, we say, Tvam Pratyaksham Brahmasi. So, Agni Devata, Vayu Devata, meditating upon that Devata as Brahma. So, that also is limited understanding. Why? Because there is Adhidaiva conditioning. Over here, there is Adhyatma conditioning. And there could be Adhibhautika conditioning also. So, conditioned form of Brahma, this mantra is saying it is limited. Athanu mimamsa mevate means you have to reflect more upon Mahavakya. What is Tvam Pada referring? What is Tat Pada referring? That Mimamsa has to be done more. And then the student goes, he is not shaken, very pakka student he is. He goes, does Mananam, comes back and says, Manye Viditam. I have understood. Not Suveda, but Viditam. Then the teacher says, what did you understand? Can you elaborate? Then the student elaborates, he is understanding again in the second mantra. Okay, this is the literal meaning of this mantra. Yadi manyase suvedeti dabhramevapi nunam. Tvam vetta brahmano rupam yadasya tvam yadasya deveshu athanu mimamsamevate manye viditam. Now, whenever we study Upanishad, right, first the literal meaning of the mantra should become clear. And when we study Bhashya, that Bhashya will be on mantra only. So means we should know which part of Upanishadic word is being elaborated in Bhashya. Right? Which word of mantra is elaborated. Okay, so now we just saw the literal meaning. Now let us see Bhashya, which will speak about individual. Yadi kadachit manyase suveda iti sushtu veda aham brahma iti. If you think Brahman is known very well, yadi kadachit manyase suveda iti sushtu veda aham brahma iti. This part is elaborated now. Kadachit yathashrutam durvidnyayam api kshina doshah sumedaha kaschit pratipadyate kaschit na iti sashankam aha yadi ityadi. When this Upanishadic teaching is given to all students, there could be few students who are kshina doshah. Impurities of the mind have gone down. And sumedaha, they are capable of appreciating or grasping that vastu which is durvidnyaya. That's why the word over here is durvidnyaya. It is unlike any object. It doesn't become seen. So there could be few people, there could be few students who are able to grasp this unseen Brahma, the knowledge of this unseen Brahma, they are able to grasp as it is. Kaschit pratipadyate, not that nobody gets it. But kaschit na, there are some who don't get it. That is why the teacher is having, or teacher is giving the benefit of doubt. He is not making a blanket statement that none of you have understood. Okay, that is why this word yadi is there. That yadi word, Bhagwan is elaborating. Sashankam aha yadi ityadi. Now, kshina doshaha, what does kshina doshaha mean actually? There are few examples we can take. In the next part of Bhashya, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji himself will explain. Okay, but we'll just see few qualities. One quality of Kshina dosha is their varanam for Atma. Whenever they study Upanishad, whenever they are doing Shravanam, mind is always upon how am I going to understand this Atma Tattva as my own true nature. Okay, so they are thirsty for Lakshana of Atma. That is called as Varanam. How I am Brahma, what is my true nature, that quest is so strong. When that quest comes, that is one Lakshana of Kshina dosha. Somebody like Nachiketa, when he went to Yamacharya, so many things were offered on a platter. He says, Tavaiva Vaha Tavanutya Gite. O Yamacharya, I appreciate all these things you have offered, but none of this is going to give me what I am looking for. I am looking for that Nitya Vastu Brahma. Knowledge of that alone will quench me. It will alone quench my hunger for knowledge, nothing else. This is one quality, Varanam for Atma. Second quality of Kshina dosha is Ekagrata. Ekagrata means being able to single-pointedly keep our mind in a particular subject. Over here it is Vedanta. So while doing Shravanam, mind not going here and there. I was sharing this earlier also in one class. When we study in the course, it takes almost 6 months. If we are lucky, out of 2 years, 6 months go away only in learning how to do Shravana. Why? Because we come with our own ideas, our own preconceived notions of what is Vedanta trying to explain, what is Vedanta trying to give us. But it takes 6 months just to appreciate the topic of Vedanta and also how to study Vedanta. Then study starts, if we are lucky. So Swamiji would say that when we are sitting in the class and suddenly start staring somewhere, either at the stage or top somewhere, or even sometimes you are looking at the speaker and it is like stabdi bhava, like you have gone into some trance. Actually, mind has gone somewhere else. So that ability to bring the mind in a particular place, that is another quality of Kshina dosha. Anekagra chitta and Shunyagra chitta. Anekagra means mind which is having several topics that are going on, or mind which is going to sleep. Shunya means that. Anekagra means it is having a lot of things going on. For Vedanta Shravanam, both are dosha only. Because this Atma Tattva is so subtle, unless we have that quality, one cannot get the full benefit. Some benefit will be there. So this is the second quality. This, the epitome of Ekagrata, we find in Arjuna. Entire Bhagavad Gita he listens. You see how single-pointedly he listens to it. Every point that Bhagwan makes, he has thought about it, asks a question right away. Something which is not clear. 7th chapter end, Bhagwan purposely throws a few difficult words which he has not explained before. Arjuna immediately catches it and says, can you explain this? So 8th chapter is explanation of all those terms that Bhagwan had used in end of 7th chapter. Second example of Ekagrata is our Parikshit Ji Maharaj. Shukdev Ji asks him in between, are you hungry? You did not eat for 3 days. Do you want to eat something? I am here only. Katha can start after that. Parikshit Ji says, before 7 days, nothing is going to happen to this physical body. So don't, I appreciate the concern for hunger, but nothing is going to happen to me before 7 days. You please tell me Bhagavad Katha. So that is the second quality, Kshina dosha. And third is ability to understand a thing as it is. Clear Shravanam, and if we have reverence in the topic, Mananam also happens. Okay. And best example of this is the transformation of Sati ji to Parvati ji. Right? Kshina dosha, unless we appreciate the example, we will not know what is Kshina dosha referring to. So Lord Shiva tries to tell nature of Bhagwan Rama to Sati ji also. But that time, she was doing Leela of Akshina dosha. We cannot say Sati ji was Akshina dosha. Akshina means one whose doshas have not been quietened down. But later on, after tapasya, after mind is purified, the same teaching which was given is appreciated very clearly by her. Okay, so this is one way to look at Kshina dosha. Sumedaha means those who are able to appreciate knowledge of that object which doesn't become an object of sense organs. Because in general, most knowledge that we have is of an sense object only. And it becomes known through our physical eyes. So method to know Brahma is different from that. So those who are able to appreciate knowledge of that thing which is not an object of sense organ, those intellect, that is called as Sumedaha. Okay. All right, we'll pause here. There is a Akhyayika coming of Indra and Virochana. But if we start that Akhyayika, it will take longer time. So there are some questions which we can take and conclude for today. Okay. The fire burning wood is a good example. Good. But unlike fire burning wood, Atman cannot know so-called other objects. Otherwise, there is duality and also action attributable to Atman. Okay. This question will take a few minutes. We'll do Purnamada and then take up this question. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Atman cannot know so-called other objects, otherwise there is duality and also action attributable to Atma. It is true, Atman doesn't know other objects, as a kriya. But when we say Atma knows other objects, what we mean there is Atma is the substratum in which Ahankara appears. Atma is that Chaitanya from which Ahankara borrows ability to know. And this Ahankara knows the world outside. Right? So whatever is done by Ahankara, it doesn't even have its existence. So that existence itself, it is borrowing from Atma. Its ability to know, it is borrowing from Atma. Because Atma is that substratum, that is why it gets the title of knower. By itself, Atma is not knower. It is knower only from the standpoint of conditionings. And this Sambandha or the title of knower is given so that we can get a door to shift our attention to Atma. Like for example, if you say, there is no knowing in Atma, that is why Atma doesn't even know thoughts. then how are you going to shift your attention from thoughts to Atma? Because there is no sambandha anymore. If you say Brahma is not Jagat Karanam, right? So what are you going to find as Karanam of Jagat? So purpose of Vedanta is not to say that Brahman is Jagat Karanam. It is Adhyaropa. Adhyaropa means superimposition. Purpose of Vedanta is to say Brahma is non-dual. In Brahma there is no creation. So this first step is Adhyaropa. So to say that thoughts are seen and I am the seer, and to some extent giving reality to thoughts, that is Adhyaropa. Apavada is to know that in this Brahma, there is no duality, there is no thought, there is no creation. There was never creation to begin with. There is no creation. There can be no creation. So that is Nishtha in Brahma Swarupa. That is why in Drigdrishya Viveka we have two types of meditation, right? One is Drishyanu-vidya, another is Shabdanu-vidya. So in Drishyanu-vidya you are just doing thoughts are seen, I am seer. But if you remove reality given to thoughts, understand that thoughts are as unreal as that illusory snake appearing on that rope, and also Mahima of this Atma, Asanga, Satchidananda, Swaprabha, Dvaita Varjita. You see, Dvaita Varjita word comes there. Means it is non-dual. There is nothing called as Atma and then thought with the same degree of reality. When that happens, that part is Apavada. So you can go and look back at those verses. It will give more clarity, more conviction. 26th verse, I think, and onwards. Drigdrishya Viveka. Okay, so that is true. Atma doesn't have knowing, it doesn't have any action. But for us to shift attention to Atma, this thing is pointed out. Okay. Varanam and Mumukshutvam are the same. Is that correct? Yes. Varanam for Atma is the same as Mumukshutvam. It takes long time for a sadhaka to appreciate that Atma alone is Varaniya. Varaniya means goal of life. Everything else which I am doing in my life is a means to reach this goal. Okay, so that part also is there. And just a small note on the previous one. Whenever we discuss this topic, right, that creation is an appearance and it is non-dual and so on. So that reflection should be done from Paramartha standpoint alone. Meaning in that, we should not bring Vyavahara and try to dilute that understanding. Right? Trying to raise ourselves up to that understanding, that should be our purpose of Vedantic study. I remembered this point because in tomorrow, our Bhagavatam Satsang, we are going to see one portion. This is the discussion between Raja Rahugana and Jada Bharata. Raja Bharata, who became Jada Bharata, he goes to the deer body and so on, right? So there, Raja Bharata, Jada Bharata gives teaching to Raja Rahugana, and he says all these things. That what distinctions are you holding on to? You are king and this person is subject and so on. In that Chaitanya, there is no creation. So how erroneous is your pride? How erroneous is your understanding of I am a king and other things that you have along with it? And you are going to give me punishment because that Rahugana says you are unable to carry my palanquin. Raja Jada Bharata, he was made to carry a palanquin and he was wobbly while walking. So king gets angry. Rahugana gets angry on Jada Bharata. So he says, I am going to give you some punishment. So Jada Bharata tells him, how are you going to give me punishment? Giving me punishment is like grinding a flour which has already been ground. I am not in this body identification anymore. I am abiding in that Chaitanya Swarupa. So when he does this kind of teaching, Rahugana says, I am unable to understand, what you are saying, because I am a king. I have to do my vyavahara, I have to do my transaction. What do you mean that I should not give punishment and I should not have this pride of being a king and so on? So there, Jada Bharatji, he tells Raja Rahugana that don't mix up Vyavahara and Paramartha while you are studying Vedanta. When discussion of Paramartha is being done, there is no appearance of creation. In that knowledge, gain conviction. When you are doing Vyavahara, don't bring Paramartha in that Vyavahara. Okay. Means although everything is Brahma, that doesn't mean I can go anywhere. Right? Sambandha with different people will be according to dharma only. So that point also you should keep in mind. Is dosha, doesn't dosha mean defect? I am confused when kshina dosha is good and not defect. Dosha means defect. Kshina dosha means ones whose defects have gone away or become very mellow. Kshina means that, right? Going down means kshina. So kshina dosha means one whose defects have gone down, and that person is sumedaha also. So such person can know this durvidnyeya atma. Okay, kaschit pratipadyate. So ke pratipadyate, who all know. So then it is said kshina dosha sumedaha. Can you please elaborate when we say Atman cannot know itself versus Atman itself is knowledge? So Atman cannot know itself, meaning there is no action of knowing in Atma by which it is coming to know itself. Right? Just like that fire example, what does fire cannot burn itself mean? Mean there is no action of burning in fire. Right? So burning, that heat itself is the nature of fire. It cannot come to burn itself. In the same way, nature of Atma is knowledge. It cannot come to know itself as something, which is an object in that way. Other things it can know. Okay, it can know thoughts, it can know world outside, just like fire can burn firewood and other things. And just now we had another discussion also. What is this knowing in Atma? It is from the standpoint of conditioning. It is given only so that we can shift attention to Atma. By itself, Atma is not knower also. Later on, something very interesting is going to be said in Kenopanishad. We say Chaitanya word is only for Upadesha. Okay, Chaitanya is not guna of Atma. To remove our attention from Jada, that is why this word Chaitanya is used. Whatever remains by removing these conditionings, that is Atma. Okay, that is the role of words. It is not to point out some object as illuminous, some object as glowing, which is Atma. Okay. All right. Hari Om everyone. See you all next Saturday and also tomorrow for Bhagavad Gita. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namah. Hari.